discrimination, workplace diversity, labor unions. Sean received his PhD from Rutgers University and his master's from Wake Forest School of Law. Sean has been in private, he's worked in the private arena for UPS, US Air, American Airlines, ATA. He also served, he's currently serving as an aeromedical evacuation squadron officer in the US Air Force Reserve. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
On top of that, Sean was on the search committee for the presidential search. And I can tell you he was not just putting in his time, he was an active member in the search committee and clearly one of the opinion leaders on the search committee. So I appreciate that, Sean. So welcome. Now I'd like to turn it over to Thor. So today we will have some discussion around some metrics and performance metrics in the athletics department, and then we'll have a follow-up discussion. Ellen Reynolds will take us through the year-end review of the student affairs, the year-end review for the student affairs. Okay, so Thor.
Great, as we're getting that set up, thank you, Kate. Martin, graduated. Back.
Thor, if you can speak into the mic, we can't hear you here.
All sports are part of the conference, except for football, which is a part of the Athletics Association. As you can see, we have many departments that %36. Are interested in a lot of different subjects and have many passions, with less than 2% of our student athletes on probation and 44% of our student athletes on the Dean's List. The 2021-2022 graduation rate was 75% this year, with a university average of 69%, so we are above that average. Of our student athletes graduating within 4 years, we have an average of 73%, with the university average, again, at 69%, so we are above that average. And the student athlete success rate is 92%.
Here on this slide, you can see the scholarship allocation for each sport. As you can see, each sport met the maximum amount that the NCAA gives out, except 4 of our sports. So that's a positive. You can see the 5-year comparisons with scholarship allocations given out, the cumulative GPA, and as well as the amount of people who made the Dean's List.
Walk-on. So we have full scholarships, but a larger number that are partial and even larger that are, a large number that's also walk-on. So it's always impressive for us to think about those that are coming here and participating, not receiving any aid, but are certainly big parts of our programs. And the other thing that you'd notice too, certainly the FY21, hopefully people can hear me, versus 22 Dean's List numbers. We've talked about that a lot before. That was the COVID grade inflation at times, a lot of pass-fail credits. So I think the 44% is pretty consistent with where we've been.
Hey, Thor, what do you attribute the change in the GPA, the movement upwards?
You know what? It's made steady progress, Tom, over the last, certainly the last 10 years. I think a lot of it has to do with great academic support that we have. The students that we're recruiting to come here, I think, are better prepared across all boards. And I know this may sound athletic-like, but there's a real competition about success. And when I think about individual programs, and some of you have seen when we recognize our student athletes at that halftime of that basketball game, right, and that huge number of students that are out there for the Dean's List participation recognition, people want to be part of that. So there's that level of expectation. Our coaches also certainly make academics, not just saying that, a major part of what the overall experience is. So it's been significant. Certainly now where, we were at a 2.85, 2.9 for a long time. So we've been over 3.0 consistently for quite some time.
At URI, our graduation success rate as of 2014-2015 was 90%, and the average that all A10 schools strive for is 90%, and this year it was 92%, so we are going in the right direction.
What GSR is, graduate success rate, what that means is it's actually a 6-year comparison. It's an NCAA rating. And what we do is we look at kids or students that come in as freshmen or transfer in, and we evaluate we measure their graduation here, or also if they end up transferring, we count and look at that as well. So if we need to make sure that we're sending, if kids do decide to transfer, that they're transferring in good standing. And again, that 90% mark is what the 810 has set as our standard. And we thought it was important. I think at our last meeting, Tom had asked, where do we stand with a lot of our other programs? And, I feel really good about where we are. We didn't list the names of the schools here out of their own privacy, but, I think a lot of the privates are on the left, a lot of the publics on the right.
How are you going to track all this with the portals, transfer portals?
We'll still be able to track it, but there's going to be a lot more kids in it. And one of the fears that we have about the portal and whether it's, basketball, football, but certainly all our sports teams, is the amount of kids that have no home right now. Not just at Rhode Island, but let's just say, I think there's like 1,000 students that are in the portal that left scholarships at their previous institutions that have no home right now. So that's going to be hard.
Where the students are coming from, you don't know if they have the same focus on academics, right? With it coming from a different school, they don't have the same support. So they're bringing in a different GPA. So it's a little.
It's going to be a challenge.
Where are they going? Where are
We're different. They may have no home, or they have to go to walk-on or Division 2 or 3.
Do they stay at the same schools they're at, or do they go to different schools?
Once you go into the transfer portal, that's a great question, Dave. The question was, can a student go back after they've been in the portal? Schools get to make that choice. Once a kid goes in the portal, they technically are giving up their opportunity and their scholarship, and they receive that, written in their materials that when they sign. So if a player in any particular team went in the portal and a coach said, yeah, you know what, go ahead and do that for a month, and then we'll see if there's a chance for you to come back. But a lot of times coaches will say, especially with programs that have limited scholarship numbers, you go, that's fine, but we've got to fill your spot.
Right. So basically, it's on the student to go into the portal, and they're opting to walk away from the school.
Correct.
And we have no responsibility to bring them back, and that's tough.
That is tough. And the hard part, Dave, too, is we're still, a lot of you have heard us talk about the academic progress, the APR. We're still impacted. Every school, not just Rhode Island, every school is impacted. If a kid leaves below a 2.6, you actually get a reduction in your APR point.
Yeah.
And with no restrictions, we used to be able to say, we won't release you if you don't have a 2.6. Now it's unlimited. Any more questions about GSR?
So like I said earlier, there are 86 total different majors that our student athletes are involved in. We have a wide variety of interests in all pursuing many different careers.
I asked Julia and Malik to read the whole list, but they said you'd be able to do that. So. But again, this is just obviously just an impressive list of what our students are part of. Just about every major on campus. It's really cool.
Here you can see the team report cards for the men's sports at the university. You can see each team's GPA, win percentage, and the conference finish. Here you can see the same thing for the women's sports, GPA, win percentage, and conference finish.
Women are way higher than the men.
We need a little gender competition.
Margot was not surprised by that.
The athletic department and the Harrington School of Communication and Media, which Malik and I both are in, have a partnership, and we are able to broadcast all the games here at URI. So I'm a part of this, and I have broadcasted the softball, baseball, and soccer games. We're able to use some of the most high-end industry equipment, and we produce, direct, create graphics, operate cameras, all for these games. It's a great experience and something that I think puts us ahead as students going out into the real world.
Where do they post that stuff? Where can you get access to
Yeah,
that?
so all the broadcasts that we do of game productions
Yep.
are on ESPN Plus.
Right.
And that's part of the A10 broadcast. And then for football, it's on Flow Sports. But one of the things that we've been working on with the Harrington School is to enhance that, to start doing more vignettes, to be able to produce content within our game broadcast, because we own a lot of that. So if there's something happening on campus that's different, unique, that's non-athletic, the Harrington School now wants to go out and produce some of that content that we can then put on the ESPN Plus platform.
As you guys know, name, image, likeness has become a huge part of college sports, and name, image, likeness basically is a company or business can use a student athlete's name, image, and likeness in order for them to make profit. It's very new. The university has been doing a great job. The athletic department has been doing a great job in educating us with it. But they're still working. They're working with this company called Influencer, which will be able to introduce us to businesses and companies and they'll be able to decide if they would like to work with us as student athletes.
Big thing for us, and you all have heard about it. NIL is going to be significant, and especially as it relates to our basketball programs and the teams that we're competing against. So we've been talking about what Influencer has done is certainly allowed education opportunities for our student athletes. It's also, we're going to be investing in a new piece of Influencer that will allow us to have local businesses connect directly. But now we got to look at even something more significant, to be honest with you, as we go out to with coaches are out trying to recruit against kids that are at a different level in terms of NIL opportunities. So, you know, we'll keep you all posted on what we're looking at and how we're going forward with that, but it's still so new that there's a lot of questions on how to best move forward. But we can, again, like I said, talk more about that later at a different time. And then as we continue to educate ourselves and provide our programs with what they need resource-wise. But Influence has been a great partner so far.
I've asked, Margot, I've asked Thor to have this discussion in September at our meeting. I think we should have it for the entire board. It's a big deal, and it can get us in trouble, and it can get us at a competitive disadvantage at the same time if we don't do it right. So, I mean, it's all over the board. To Thor's point, we've all heard stories. I mean, I think Ohio State's got $19 million set up for football, and so it's going to be varied by the mid-majors and the conferences, but it's something that we have to all understand what we can do, what we can't do, who administers it, what happens if the kid leaves, there's a bunch of issues here. And I can see we just have to rein it in. We got to get some guidelines and some rails around this. So we'll talk more about it in September.
Absolutely. Mental health, I'm going to take this one quick. Obviously, a big topic of discussion for all our student athletes. Jay, can you hear me as I'm not near the mic? Okay.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Mental health is certainly a big area of focus for our students. We've had a great partnership. You've heard me talk about it before with the Psychological Counseling Center. They've been amazing, in which our student athletes have a lot quicker access to work directly with them, where the grad students working under a professor to provide, I think, quicker counseling. we're also trying to do some different things where we have students that are taking some grassroots initiatives. A group called Active Mind, started by one of our track athletes, is something that he took from a national association and bringing it to campus. There's a women's group of student athletes that came together and really providing a support group for each other, and then Mental Health Warriors Project. So there's just a lot of focus there. One of the things that the president and I have actually been talking about initially is just to say, what else can we do in terms of self-help? Are there things that we can do in terms of educating our students of what they can do and we can do collaboratively to make sure that that they are feeling supported and have ways of outlets of dealing with mental health issues that are not the therapy and treatment kind. That's obviously to the expert. Department revenues. This is all in your materials, but again, just to kind of go through it real quick to get a sense of where do we generate most of our money. As most programs in the A10, majority comes from institutional support. But then we have the opportunity to go out and gain additional revenue, NCAA distributions, donations, ticket sales, sponsorship and royalties, guarantees, et cetera. Obviously, huge opportunity there for us to continue to go out and generate more revenue. One of the things that folks do need to know is when we talk about the NCAA, the importance of the NCAA basketball championship, we were receiving 4 units equated to somewhat close to $700,000 a year. 2 of those are falling off now. So that's real money. So we got to figure out how, that's the importance of investing in coach, investing in our players, looking at things like NIL to make sure that that becomes a regular every year that we want to be participating in that event. Because again, the revenue we generate from it is significant and outside of revenue, institutional support, far greater than anything else we can do for other ways to generate revenue. Questions on this slide?
What's the A10 TV revenue?
The way I would word it, Tom, is based on our distribution. We get a 1 unit or 1 equity distribution as a school outside of what we generate from our NCAA tournament participation. And that's approximately $300,000 a year. That includes, though, TV, that includes conference tournament, sponsorship piece. So there's a lot to it.
So is it divvied up between the schools? In other words,
Correct.
so does a school that goes to the NCAAs get a bigger portion?
Yeah, we don't get a bigger portion of the TV money. We get a bigger portion of the NCAA
The
money.
NCAA money, so I'm just talking about
Nope.
TV.
That's all one equity share.
Seemed like a lot. I mean, it's not a lot compared to other
Compared to the Big East,
conferences.
compared to some of the other ones.
So
mean,
what would a PC get? 3 or 4 million or something?
This is based on just my what I'm pretty sure I'm
Yeah.
educated with. I'm going to say their distribution is probably more in the 3 million range from their Fox Sports deal. That was the original contract, so I'm sure it's got increases each year.
So that goes to the point of the makeup of the league. When you think about some of the teams, to name them, but we gotta make it more of a league that TV. Big addition, but the other places that we play,
Right.
Coach knows them better than anybody, but it's all part of the process.
But it's a huge part.
How long has our commissioner been?
Bernie's 12 years.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Department expenses, again, the biggest chunk of that is athletic aid and coaches' salaries, staff salaries. But you can kind of get a sense of where our expenses go. Thought it was important, again, to show the basketball revenue, which is our biggest opportunity.
What-
Go ahead.
What do we still need for basketball to be competitive? I mean, we addressed its coach issue, we've practice facility.
Yeah, so the investments that we made when we hired coach, significant.
Yeah.
That puts us there. I think the next one is going to be a big talk about NIL. And when we talk about NIL, it's talking about, Tom talked about Ohio State, and that's absolutely true with some of the Power Fives. But what's happening now at the Big East level, even the A10 level, in the top 3 or 4
Yeah.
programs, they're doing between $750,000 and $1 million a year in NIL opportunities.
Right.
So it's significant. And that's got to be outside of the university support. And so that's business, that's donors and whatever, and it's got to be, there's ways, and we'll talk a lot more about it in September, but we've got to be working on it now. Why is that important? For retention of current players, but more importantly, with the players that coaches going out trying to recruit at that different level of player, they're getting these opportunities. Did I speak properly on that, Coach?
You did.
Expenses, again, this was based on FY21. You can see where some of that went down. That's COVID. We just didn't travel and didn't play as many games. And I always like to show comparisons. Again, this is FY21 of where which was last year. The new numbers I'll have for you hopefully in September or in December. But this, again, gives you some comparative data of where we were and where we want to be. And you can all, I won't mention the schools, but you can figure out who's who. Women's basketball revenue, another one. What Tammy's done has been great. That's a huge revenue opportunity for us. We can generate a lot more revenue than we've been doing, and that's going to come from ticket sales. Expenses, again, very similar. And then the comparisons. We've made some significant increases in her area, especially around team travel, when we made the investments on the men's side for gender equity purposes.
Continue the success of the athletic, it's necessary to in the athletics department. This can be done through fundraising and, most importantly, the Rhode Island State Bond. Two of the primary examples are the Meade Stadium East Grandstand, which is an estimated cost of $34. The outdoor track and field is $6 to $9.5 million, and then some other examples. I want to highlight the permanent boathouse because I'm part of the rowing team, and these builds, they really entice recruits and they make people want to come to URI. And not only that, but it benefits Rhode Island as a whole and a community.
So one of the things that that we do, and you know, talking to Mark about this, we know there's challenges and about the bond issue, but when we're talking about the numbers that we're, you know, for these capital projects, it's significant enough that that the bond is going to have to be the way we go. So you can see some of the primary facilities that we're focusing on. The first two, we've already done the initial architectural and engineering work for. The others will start raising money to get some of that work done, so we have a sense of what the prices will be.
We don't have any safety issues, right?
Around Meade Stadium, we actually get an engineer to sign off on the structural safety of the facility, which has already been done. There is an egress issue at the stadium, which is a new code challenge that we had last year. So we will be fixing that. We were hoping to have that fixed this summer. It just didn't work out with some supply chain stuff with steel. So we, once the season ends, they're going to start putting in new stairways to allow greater exit egress, and then that'll help increase our capacity because we'll have to reduce the capacity of those west stands again this year by about 1,500 people. That's not for structural reasons, it's for egress reasons.
Here you can see architectural designs of some of the facilities coming in the near future. Here you can see Meade Stadium.
The left would be the left is the west stands, and the right side is the connection to the Ryan Center.
Will be there opportunities for premium seating, like say suites or stuff, some revenue generating stuff?
We won't put suites in that part. That would just increase the price significantly. Because we have suites on the Ryan Center side, we felt like we're going to be fine there. What we do have is a new press box. That won't be, it'd be more of a functional press box. It will include media and coaches boxes. But we can certainly, the plan would be for premium seating in there too.
We have the outdoor track and field coming real soon.
That's another one that's going to be important because we've had great success with our track programs, and we've done it without a track. So we have the indoor track, which is great. The outdoor track has been unusable for at least 20 years.
Then we have the basketball practice facility, which is actually starting very soon. It will be done in spring 2023. Unfortunately, I will be a year late, but I think it's going to be great for recruits for the men's and women's basketball team. And yep.
Well, you don't leave because they may have questions for you, but the practice facility, so everybody knows, the bid has been awarded, waiting on the purchase order. So the contractor has been named. I'm so excited to say that the bids came in on budget, which is terrific. So the plan is to start construction in the next month. That's a West Stadium renovation. And then we're told sometime in the spring, so I'm saying August of '24, that we should be, have access to it. So it's very exciting. So with that, that's our presentation, but folks have questions for myself and certainly Julia and Malik, please don't hesitate on this subject or anything else.
23.
You said 24.
Thanks, Mike.
So I just general question for both the student athletes. If you could pick one or two things that URI could do better in supporting our student athletes, what would it be? Besides a better boathouse?
Nothing's off the table.
Yeah, this is not, don't feel bad. We're trying to, listen, we're all in this together. We're trying to move proverbial ball up the court, right?
I mean, I think the NIL stuff is actually is huge. I mean, I have a lot of friends in the college basketball world. It's like them big time programs is kind of moving very fast with the NIL.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've been taking steps and getting educated, but no real like gains from it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be huge for us, definitely, especially for recruits. We got a new coach, and I think we'll definitely need that in soon.
Mention what you said to me on the way up. School, but one of your friends, the deal that.
Oh yeah, one of my friends, he received a BMW. I don't know the details behind it, but he received a BMW deal. He's a basketball player.
This is an example.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, Thor. I think we should have some student athletes on this NIL committee as we talk about it, right?
Great idea.
They get their ear to the ground, they hear what's working, they hear from friends. So that's an important point.
Would just say as well, the NIL, I feel like URI does a good job at helping us with our academics, mental health, and our athletics. But NIL is something that I just don't know a lot about, and that's because it's new. But I think that's something that everyone can utilize in a big way like BMW or a small way in local
Yep.
stores.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have?
We, are we going to be late in September if we don't sort of, I mean, it's accelerating now in what the work that Thor is doing. We'll hear more about it in September, but,
Working on it, yeah.
okay. But we want to, it sounds like we're maybe even a step behind some of our competitors.
Yeah, I think what we need to be doing now is certainly moving forward. My mind, and if it's the way I understood September is more as much an educational session of, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, making sure everybody understands the rules associated with it. Universities can't be part of it, but we can be part of it in terms of making, it's the fine line of making connections between business and donors, but then we have to back away. And it's as much educating the board about making comfort level and what we're going to do or what we're doing that's NSA compliant, which is still a lot of questions about what's happening out there. Pay for play. So you're hearing stories about, student athlete that has X deal to come to a certain school. That's technically a violation. But, how do we make sure we're doing it the right way? And I think what coaches would like to be able to say is, hey, here's our NIL program. Here's the connections you can make to whether it's an event company or whether it's whether it's a collective, here's who we can connect you with. You've got to then build your contract out with them. And, we would know that we have connected our donors, supporters, sponsors to that person or that association to get behind it. And that's just right or wrong, good or bad. That's the game that we're going to be.
But to Margot's point, we're working on this in July and now, and just presenting it to the board, but
Right.
Coach, what's your take on all this in the NIL thing?
No, I think that the first thing I would tell you is it is the fastest moving thing that's hit the college collegiate landscape ever. Within 12 months ago, this conversation would never happen.
Right.
12 months later, you're looking anywhere from between 25 and $30 million collectives that are being paid out to, all the way down to six figures being made by individual student athletes in some cases right now, to be in school, back in school, and in some cases come to school. There's no way that they can regulate it, and there's no real right or wrong answer to how to do it, other than the fact that you have to have a fabric of what you want to be about as a athletic department / program. There's a lot of good that can be done by this. I mean, these young guys and young girls, they clearly are very, very talented. I think there's very clear that they can make something more than just a couple dollars while they're in school. They can carry this over with these companies or these people that they're dealing with from a network and a relationship standpoint. But 3 months from right now, it'll be a completely different conversation.
Right.
Until something falls through the cracks or, eventually student athletes become employees, however it trends. But it's real. It's a positive. I think right now that, I'm sort of back in the game and kind of taking a deep approach, listening to what was going on, before getting to URI and now sort of really understanding what's going on. But there's a significant amount of money involved in an NIL program. It's not chump change. It is a significant amount of money
Meaning to support it.
to support it.
Yeah.
It really is. It's $500,000 a year. It's $1 million a year, and that's to pay. That's to be paid out through the course of your team, not one player.
Right.
The course of your team, and I think that's the reality of it. But there's a lot of people doing really good things with it. A lot of programs doing it the right way. Guys in college basketball in general are better for it. They want to stay in school longer now, which means you get your degrees. I mean, there's a lot of players that are first and second round picks leaving early that aren't leaving anymore. And that means that they're in school longer, which is a good thing. So there's a lot of good coming from it as well. But it's a real thing. The conversations that you have, the articles that you read, it is an ever-evolving big business right now.
Well, members of this committee will hear about it and be called to have some discussions around it. I think we just have to have a guiding principle of where we want to be as a school around it. And I think we're going to make some mistakes, but it's going to move quick and we just have to learn from it. But to do nothing will be behind the 8 ball. So.
Quick question, Thor. What's the rules? Because I think the biggest issue here is really educating the donors of the sponsors, or I would call them sponsors for this case. And I think the Power Five, the big schools, have gotten on this really quickly, right? And so I guess the question I'd have, I don't know exactly where do you have a hands around, like, how do we educate the community around this opportunity, right? The local car dealer who's got 3 car dealerships who wants to hire Malik to be a sponsor for their thing and run this through the NILs kind of thing. That's
Sure.
what's happening pretty fast right now.
That's what's happening fast, but I think it's funny, if it was just that would actually be a lot easier
Right.
to manage. It's the collectives and it's this, some of the other bigger pools that we're talking about. So that, like, for that example, with, going to a local car dealer,
Right.
our compliance people talk to that person and that person is treating this like a business decision.
Yeah, marketing, yeah.
So it's really, we can't really say what's market value anymore, or what isn't.
Right.
That's for them to figure out. We have to stay out of it. What we're talking more about is we were on a call, for example, with an event company that's working with a number of different schools, but at our level, Big East level, A10 level, and even some of the Power 5 levels, in which they're putting on events, putting on the equivalent of a Midnight Madness, putting on the equivalent of a camp. And then they're saying to the players, we're out of it, but we've connected, or those schools have connected some of the top donors, and they're saying, okay, we need to collect $1 million to be able to put into our pool, and then we'll go build the deals with the players. So, but they won't do that if they have to look at it and say, we're going from scratch and we're just calling Thor Bjorn and I'm going to ask them to support this. They're going to be like, no, we're not doing that. So we have to walk that fine line. To Tom's point is, what are we allowed to do? How can we bring people together? Because we know we have to support it, but we then have to back away. And fine, because then it's got to go directly through that event company or the collective with the players. And that's where the contracts go.
It's how it's administered and the fees charged and.
Fees, charged, contracts, taxes, 1099s, all that stuff. And it can't be hard. Like, we could never do something on campus to pay the players to do that. And we're not allowed to use that promise for a recruiting tool. So coach couldn't say, hey, you come here, you got a $100,000 deal. He could say, we have a partnership with company X or collective Y, and this is how it's worked.
All right, I think,
I have two quick things, Tom. Yeah, Thor, the NBA thinks that the kids have come out of school way too early in general, so they're trying to figure how they can help in the next year, because they come out too early, it's just, and they've done a lot of analysis of this, so they're trying to figure out how they could fund their part of that, like, in a sense, get that to those kids. Because you look at this guy Williams can do coming out. If he came out early, would have been nowhere near this kind of a pick 1 year ago. So second thing is, what's going on in the media world is there's lots of changing going on in the local TV markets with streaming. And in fact, it doesn't sound like we have an opportunity. I was asking David, we were on these premium services. People, our fan base was saying, we don't want to pay $10 a month for that. We want accessibility of that in our local package, because you're alienating your view. You're getting money for it, but you're not as accessible to that, right? And when this whole study, and half these local TV networks are going out of business and trading it, there's going to be a wide shift in streaming. We got to figure out a way. I think the conference does. I think A10 is behind on it. Conferences, and I think we do, how to reach our fan base, how to get that content going, how to get paid for it.
And how to get paid for it and how to make it bigger.
Right.
No, you're right.
so I guess you're hearing from the committee and the board is we need to move faster, right? We need to get this going. So there'll be a smaller subgroup that's going to work on this and we're going to be riding the buses. We're, changing the parts, right? So it's going to be moving quick, but we can't miss an opportunity. So, okay, more to come. Thanks. Thanks, gang. Okay, next up, Ellen Reynolds, from Vice President of Student Affairs.
To remind everybody, the Division of Student Affairs is a broad division, so we cover a lot of different areas. And clearly, with timing, I'm going to move quick to keep us on time, but also know that I'm going to talk about 3 areas today. And then when we come back in September, when we come back in September, we'll report on a few other areas as well, so that we can give each department a little to be exposed to them. So just a quick refresher: campus stores, campus rec, which is the home of the state-of-the-art Passatelli Fitness and Wellness Center, club sports, housing, residential living, dining services, counseling center, health, talent development, center for student leadership, student memorial union. So lots of different areas. So I'm going to start today by just looking at a few things that we look at when we monitor how we're doing and how we help students be successful at the University of Rhode Island, and how we use the data to help us better align the services to meet the students' needs, and also remove obstacles that students tell us they're having to access those needs. So I'm going to review some utilization data for each area, surveys, national surveys, and share that with you. So I'll start with health services. So I think most of you know, but health services is located in the lower part of campus. It's in the residence hall complex. We are a large ambulatory care center. We are Joint Commission accredited. And the reason I say that is, for those of you who are not familiar, it's the gold standard in healthcare. It really is. We're one of 17 college health centers that chose to be accredited by the Joint Commission. Others are accredited by another accrediting organization. A little bit about the data from the health services over the last year. So general medicine visits, 22,946. That breaks out to about 150 visits a day. So we're busy, right? Taking care of our students. We know students need to be healthy and well to be successful academically, socially, progress, and retain. And I won't go through all the numbers, but nutrition, 530, we do allergy and immunizations, we have radiology available, so we do plain films on site. We have a laboratory, look at that, 31,000 tests, right? To make sure that we can meet the needs of our students for their laboratory needs, and they don't have to leave campus. Pharmacy, behavioral health, we're lucky to have a certified psychiatric nurse specialist and 2 consulting psychiatrists available on campus to meet the behavioral health needs of our students. And we have to remember that last year we weren't quite out of COVID. We were still in pandemic mode. So we did 77,000 COVID tests. That was observed those tests and worked with a consulting laboratory to process them. And 2,200 contact tracing of positive cases. I say that because that is a lot of work in engaging each one of those individuals and working through what their needs might be while they were recovering from COVID. So how does the health center deal with data? We survey our students every semester to evaluate how they perceive the services they received, not only for expectations, but the services of the healthcare provider and how that met their needs. One of the metrics we look really closely at is 92% of the students would recommend URI health services to other students. That was for this spring. I will tell you that we typically run about 95%. But when I just told you that 2,200 students have to go into isolation and quarantine, all of those students were surveyed as well. So one would expect that there might be a slight dip in the data, but right now we're running, this last spring we ran 92% of the students would recommend our services. When I look at national averages out there, just so you know, those run about 85% on average. So we're well above what the healthcare standard is in the health arena. 92% of our students were very or somewhat satisfied with their telehealth. That's a new model that we're doing. COVID made us do it, but what we heard from our students is 80% of the students want us to continue that service. They don't want to drive to campus if they don't need to, and the type of service they need to have can be delivered in a telehealth setting. And so, and I would also say for teletherapy. So that's a service that we're going to continue. The other things we heard is that students would like to have online access to be able to make appointments. We have the technology of an electronic health record. We're able to offer those services. We also believe that what will happen with that is that we'll have less no-shows because students want to engage at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or whenever they can and not during traditional hours. So working towards that 24-hour service availability where we can. So moving forward, just a little bit more data. 94% of the students felt that we met their expectations. 95 felt the clinic provided the care they expected. 93 found the information useful and helpful. How about 98% understood the test or examinations that we were going to perform on those? Those are really good numbers. And 95% indicated staff were friendly and helpful. So proud of the work that the health center is doing, particularly during COVID and all that they've done. We also survey our students, just so you know. We think this is really important as we help prepare our students going out into the workforce. We want to make sure that they're prepared to do the job for us and give them a good experience. And 100% of the students reported that they felt that they had adequate training for the work that we were asking them to do. And 92% of them actually felt that they had received adequate training on customer service. It's one of the areas we ask about because it's really important that we have exceptional customer service. And so we're always looking to engage students and give them the best experience, knowing that any field that they're going to go into, that is important for them. So again, moving quickly, I'm just going to talk a bit about the counseling center and a little bit about their utilization data. So they engaged over the last academic year a little bit less than 2,000 students who attended about 6,400 appointments engaged with the counseling center. 65% of the students attended between 1 and 5 appointments and 21% between 6 and 10. And the reason for that is we really do work on a brief intervention model. So we have psychologists, licensed mental health counselors, social workers. And so our goal is to work with students on a step model where we can get them to a lower level of acuity where they don't need a one-on-one appointment. So we also offer obviously support groups around many different topics that are important to students and ensuring that they have access. So we have an anxiety toolbox, a graduate student support group, sleep well, success over stress, understanding self and others. So trying to move students to the next level when it's safe for them to be able to do it. I'll also say that they performed 977 triage appointments. Well, why did that happen? It happens because when you don't have enough service available right away, we want to make sure that we can have a brief intervention with any student who presents or calls to ensure that they have a safety plan, they have access to resources, and we have connections to get them in to the next available service and that they know how to access all that they may need to be successful. And we also, 204 emergency appointments. So what I'll say here is that these numbers are also indicative of the fact that we were down 3 positions last year. And so we continue to work to fill those positions. I'm really excited to advise that the Counseling Center was able to recently make an offer and accepted an offer of our first multicultural counselor. We prioritized one of the positions. We're able to go out and search. And although it took a couple of searches, we are able to say that we have a new counselor joining us that is really going to help us expand access to our services. We're continuing to try to fill those other 2 positions. And I'll be honest, it's a tough job market right now. This really hard work that we're asking these counselors to do and trying to be competitive at everybody is dealing with the mental health increase in need for services. I spoke about that in April, so I won't go into that, but I think everybody is reading about mental health, access to mental health, and having adequate services available to ensure. I'll also tell you that following our talk in April, we have successfully navigated through and are working through procuring a relationship with a partner who can help us extend the Counseling Center services. So a more comprehensive look. What does that look like? Having a student have an app available branded by the University of Rhode Island that really gives them 24/7 access to a clinician, even after hours for brief intervention. It could be a chat. We know that Gen Z, right? They are native to technology. They want everything on their phone and they want it now, right? Instant access. So having some of that available, having it available in 150 different languages so that students can access the language that they want to. That's what we're hoping to gain by this partnership. And we're really excited that over the month of August, we hope to deploy and implement and then move forward with rolling it out to our students when they arrive in September. So it won't replace the Counseling Center. It will augment and stretch the resources that we know that we're going to need to support students in the coming year. So how do they measure success? So they are part of a national group. They do a CAPS pre and post survey with their students. So in this case, this was for students who were accessing services for depression. And so students filled out a pre-treatment questionnaire and then a post treatment questionnaire. And as you can see there, the scores reflect that in pre-treatment, they were at 2.08, post-treatment down to 1.46. How does that compare nationally? When you look down, we do have the ability to reflect on how that compares. And it is certainly a decrease, and it's a decrease that's even better than the national average after they've engaged with our counseling center. And I'll tell you the same is true for when they're generalized anxiety treatment. So pre and post 2.54 down to 1.96. And so again, this one had actually even a bigger span of improvement over the national average, and certainly a decrease for students after they'd received treatment with the counseling center. So that's important. Prior to the pandemic, the Counseling Center also did a client survey. They haven't done that yet. They're re-looking at that now, and we hope to deploy that out in the fall semester to do some additional surveying of students as far as the care that they have received. I'll also tell you that we are actively engaged in working with Dr. John Stringer from Institutional Research to look at data on utilization and some demographics and see what we can additionally tell about the students using those services and how it helps them be successful here at the University of Rhode Island. We're navigating through the privacy issues again because we have to be conscious of that and know that some information can't be shared. And so it's a little bit of work that we're doing, but we're really excited that hopefully in the fall semester we'll be able to get even more rich data about the students who engage with both of those services. And so moving forward, I'll just talk quickly about our talent development program and share a little bit about talent development. So for those of you who don't know, talent development is available for students within the state of Rhode Island who don't meet our traditional admission criteria, but who obviously have an opportunity for a place here at the University of Rhode Island. And it's a program built around supporting those student learners so that they can be successful through to graduation. So this year, right now we're sitting at about 966 TD scholars. I'm happy to tell you that this year we've admitted 380 TD scholars, which is back up to where we were pre-pandemic, just so you know. That was closer to where our average is. And we'll be inviting them to campus on July 24th. They'll engage in a 5-week summer intensive program where they'll learn about not only the academic rigor and how to be successful, but also the social aspects of living on campus, right? Eating in a dining facility, engaging in community services here that will support them and making those connections. And based on what we've learned from previous scholars, we've adopted the curriculum that they'll be using. They will earn 3 credits when they're here. That helps them go into the fall semester, so they have some credits to start with. So they may not have to take 15 credits, but could take less credits if that's what's necessary to be successful. And so just a little bit about the demographics, 59% identify as women, 41 identify as men, 39% are currently enrolled in University College. That's where most of our students stay for the first 2 years. So that's not a surprise to us. And a little bit about the breakdown. They right now identify in TD, 93% of the individuals identify as Black, Latinx, Asian, Native American, 2+ races, Pacific Islander or other, and 3% identify as white. A couple other things we want to tell you about them. Most are Pell eligible. And this year, we're very proud of the fact that they graduated approximately 200 graduates when you look at our December and May graduates. So that's really, really exciting. So what is TD? Before I move forward with that, just for a minute, TD, each student who's in TD has a TD advisor that works along with their academic advisor to provide some additional support. They meet with that TD advisor weekly and really with an appreciative approach to trying to help the student be successful and navigate through the University of Rhode Island. That advisor also meets with their academic advisor at least once a semester in support of the student. They also survey their students to find out how they're doing, and what they've heard is 84% of the TD scholars reported that they felt accepted, supported, and comfortable with their TD, so that real strong sense of belonging, which we hope to achieve. We also heard that scholars would like to have more experience in financial aid, time management, and study skills, and let me tell you what that means. So that's the information we need back, and then we can build a program around that. And so our TD summer program actually has programming on financial aid. We have somebody from enrollment management who comes in and talks to them all about financial aid. What does it look like? What does their grant cover? What might they need to cover the rest of their cost? Their FAFSA, how do they, promissory notes, all the things that they need to be successful to help allow them to not miss a deadline, not do something that can assist them in the program. The other thing is we partnered with Harbor One Bank, and they actually have somebody come on campus and do some programming as well. They've offered a grant and come in a lecture style course, help people understand financial literacy, students understand our financial literacy. So let me just talk about the outcomes. So first year, full-time, fall 2020 to 2021, retention rate is about 78%. That's really good. When you think about this exactly, Thor, when you think about this population, so many of them come from underperforming schools, right? Many of them come from some really challenging backgrounds, maybe single parents. Some might be in the state system in DCYF. They're still needing a terrific amount of support. And so it's not unusual to expect that they might not be achieving the same rate as our traditionally admitted students. But I'll tell you, we're not far behind. We're well within 5% of our traditionally admitted students, and that's really, really a great thing. And then we talk about our second year retention. In 2020, we're at 71%, 69 dipped down. 2021 dipped down to 69%. And like Thor, we're not really sure. There's a couple of things, but certainly COVID had an impact. It had an impact on this population significantly, and we want to believe that that may have been a significant contributor as well. Our TD team is working really hard. They've had a comprehensive program review and working on a retention plan that makes sure we're meeting the needs of the students so that they can be successful. And we also are currently, we had a posting up for an assistant director of retention and graduation. I heard yesterday that's come down. It was not a successful search, but we're going back at it again to see how we can recruit and attract someone to come work with us to allow us to expand our efforts to ensure students are retained. So now the highlight of the talk, and this is really telling a story. This is 3 of our talent development scholars and their stories that came out just this semester. And I'll start with Kevin Suggs. So Kevin is one of 7 students who are awarded the David Boren Award. It's the most prestigious award given for study abroad in the U.S. And actually this year, URI is number 6 in the nation with the numbers that we received. But Kevin is in the International Engineering Program, and he's going to take his first trip outside of the U.S. He'll take classes his first semester abroad at a university in Japan, and then the second semester will either serve as an intern or will do some research with a Japanese company. He's a graduate of Davies Vocational High School in Rhode Island, and following graduation, he hopes to have a career in computer engineering and maybe work and live in Japan. So what a great success story. And then moving forward, I'll talk about Nakina Kilgore, who's a 2022 TD graduate in kinesiology. She She decided to join the National Guard in 2019 and enrolled at the University of Rhode Island, started as a health studies major, moved to kinesiology, is just an outstanding student from Providence who has really engaged the university the entire time she's been here. She was a resident assistant for 2 years during COVID. Let me tell you how hard of a job that was, trying to work with students and ensure that they were compliant with all of the regulations and policies that we had in place. She also really talks about her time working in the laboratory with Dr. Chapman on wearables, in the wearables lab, which is the biometric wearables lab, and how much of an impact that has had on her. She certainly gives credit to Director Williams and her TD advisor, Bobby Brito Oliveira, who were instrumental in helping her become the student and graduate that she is today. She is a graduate, and she has gone to complete her military contract and then hopes to come back to Rhode Island and get a graduate degree in kinesiology. She really would like to become and advance her master's degree. And then thirdly, I'd like to speak about Liz Mylan Ramos, who was a 2020 grad of the Talent Development Program, who was awarded a Fulbright grant. And she is a first-generation Dominican American who has a passion for inclusive teaching and pedagogy. And she's going to spend 9 months in Brazil teaching English. She's hoping to come back and go into studying neuroscience. And her ultimate goal is to obtain her doctorate, become a professor, and have her own neuroscience laboratory. So these are just a few highlights of some of the programs within the Division of Student Affairs. We certainly have some plans to move forward. As I indicated, we're collaborating with institutional research to strengthen the culture of cross-institutional student success. I was just speaking with Sean about the fact that we want to look at the whole student. We don't want to look at them by division or by department. We want to look at all of the ways that they're engaged in the university and measure how their success is. We also are looking at a joint hire potentially for data assessment. We're sitting on a ton of data, but we really need assessment, right? We need somebody who's really expert in that and able to do that. And then I would say also we're looking to move beyond spreadsheets into products such as like a Power BI, where we can really have a data dashboard and know how we're doing in real time with many of the metrics that we hope to monitor on our students and their success. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Just one comment and two questions. The survey is unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen numbers like that. If that was presented to me in my business, I would think it was rigged. But it sounds like we're doing an unbelievable job, 95%, given the constraints we have in that building and people. My other question is around the talent development. One, how much does it cost the university a year? And two, how informed are people in the State House around the talent development program?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer both of those, but I'll start with the individuals from the program. I will tell you that Director Williams and I talk about this all the time. Whenever I travel or go anywhere, it seems I always run into somebody wearing an interlocking RI and they were part of the talent development program or know somebody from the talent development program. I think they do have a really broad reputation. I'm not sure people know the nuances of the program, but so I think about Mayor Lawser, who's an alum, who talks about it, right, from the program.
Right.
We have a new hire in the president's office, Carlos Lopez Estrada, who's an amazing individual who graduated from the program, who's involved with state legislature. I think there's some knowledge of it, Tom, but I'm not sure how much they know about it. Mark, did you want to jump in?
Tom, I think it's something that we have to talk about. I will say that in many times that I went to the State House talking about it, I had the feeling that it was sometimes the first time that people had heard about it. So, so it is something that we have to talk about. And honestly, we invest more in talent development than we do actually in athletic scholarships at the university. So that's also sends a very strong signal. So it's quite an investment. It's about 14 million.
I think the state should know it. The amount of in-state students that we're taking in, I think they know there's a talent development program, but I don't think they know the specifics around it and the importance in the state. And it can almost be a special funding item.
It is, and it's also, I'll have to say, one of the pleasures that I've had this first year here is I've gone to different events, and it's always nice when graduates of URI come up to chat with me, and then they tell me with pride that they were talent development students, and they're really grateful to the university and the hand they gave. So it's always an extremely, extremely positive with the community.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the talent development, students loving it and explaining it and getting, psychic rewards out of it besides the education. I'm just thinking about, I bet you if we asked someone in the state, pick an election, pick an officer and holder in the state, I bet you they couldn't come up with how many students, what the cost is, what the graduation rate is, the impact on the minority community in the state. I think it would be just, in general, they know it's a talent. Maybe we should do a story on it and somewhere from a media
Just
standpoint.
thinking also with, we just hired a new head of marketing and communications. And his job's going to be how to position URI.
Perfect.
And you're right, like this could be a special funding item. It could be, I mean, it hits every objective of what we're trying to do for the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're funding it, and it's not their job to understand it. It's our job to tell them about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Certainly, look, I think Margot's right. We are Rhode Island's university.
Yeah.
We are so important for the state. Certainly, the finance committees in the House and in the Senate. I spent a lot of time going through the details on the success, because these are students that, as Ellen said, will speak up very clearly and say they may not have gone to university if it wasn't for this program. And, I'm looking forward to the end of July, welcoming the students on the lawn at the House
there you go.
that are coming, that are going to get going. It's extremely important. And, but I think also in a general sense, in fact, I was talking to Matt McDonald, so he's going to be our new vice president for starting August 1 for communications. He's this is part of the story. We have to talk about how we're changing lives, how we're lifting the state, how we're really pushing to lift the economy. So really, and that message has, an investment in the university and an investment is really an investment in the future of the state. So.
Okay. One last question. You mentioned we were number 6 in the nation. I didn't get that. What was that?
So for that gentleman who was awarded the prestigious scholarship to study abroad,
Uh-huh.
this last year, URI was number 6 in the nation to have for that award. So because of the number of people that were awarded. So let me just go back, Tom.
And
It was the Borden
It's the
Scholarship.
Boren
It's a Boren.
Scholarship.
Boren.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I just want to mention, Tom, we were number 1 in the Hulling scholarships in the U.S. So that's to have summer with internships with NOAA.
Yeah.
So
Good.
no pressure to the basketball team, okay, or the crew team, who are fantastic. We love that you went to the NCAAs and watched with great pride, but number 1 for Hulling. So I just was on the talking to the director of NOAA, so that was nice.
So Tom, that placed URI number 6 on the list for the 2022 awards, just so you
Okay.
know, based on.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay, thank you very much.
Coach, you're 3
It's fucking Boston. That's what I was gonna say. Okay, the next item on the agenda, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Ocean.
A second.
So moved.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adjourned. The next meeting will be of the Student Life and Athletics Committee will be September 22nd. Thank you.